Business is a journey, not a destination. Sometimes that journey includes something called a BitLocker, locking you out of your computer at the end of the month when you need to do your invoices so your cash flow continues. And so, here's what I learned. My computer locked me out. It was on this, you would call it the BitLocker blue screen of doom. And, looked up on the internet of how to fix it. And they just said, well, get your recovery password and type it in, and it works. Well, getting the recovery password was a chore in itself, and then it didn't work. And, so we, tried multiple things. As a business owner, it's very frustrating when your equipment doesn't work as it needs to. And, all my information, I couldn't get to it. It was very frustrating. I was doing everything from my phone, and, that's horrible. And so, yeah, it was a chore. And, I had some friends and family. We tried some stuff. We looked on the internet, and we, tried some stuff in the command lines and, stuff that we saw, and nothing worked. And I was to the point I was going to just reset the computer or buy a new computer or something, because I was just sitting still. I was getting nothing done, and it was draining on me. And actually, my son-in-law, he talked me off the ledge, and he said that there has to be a way out of this. And he was looking, trying to find stuff, and he'd find some stuff, and we'd try stuff. And then finally, one day I sat down here, and I used technology, and I actually used Claude, and typed in what was going on, and I'll show you what I even asked it. I basically just said, BitLocker, lock me out of my Windows 10 computer. I've entered the recovery key, but it just loops back again, asking for the recovery key again. And it responds, that's frustrating. BitLocker looping like that. Here are some steps. So it started giving me steps to do. So I would do the steps, and then I would enter in the results, and then we just kind of built our way out of it. So I'm going to show you what I did basically. So hopefully it'll help you out. First you got to get your recovery key, which, like I said, that was a chore in itself. You have to go to Microsoft, and then you have to go through the security stuff. They're going to send you codes. And then I recommend, if you have the ability, to print it off. If not, screenshot it on your phone, because you're going to need it more than once. And that'll just simplify if you can do that. And then I don't know if this is normal, but they showed me having 3 different recovery keys. And on the first, when you get into your BitLocker recovery, blue screen of doom, you just enter that 48 key password into it. And I did it without the dashes, but they say some computers you have to add it. But you'll see there a little bit below there, it says the recovery key ID. So if you do have more than one recovery key, they'll have an ID with it. And you'll definitely need the one with the ID for this screen here. Now, when you get to the command prompts, this one didn't work, at least not for me. So I had to use one of the other two. I don't know if that's normal or what. I'm not a computer guy. So, you type in your number, and then you can press enter there, and hopefully it works. If it doesn't, You can hit escape at the bottom for more recovery options. But before you do that, what I did, I went to Claude.ai, and it's like a chat GPT. And then I just typed in what my computer was doing. And then it said, all right, try this, try this. And then those things didn't work. So then it had me, we went down here on the bottom here, and I, pressed escape. And then it took me to this screen, to choose an option. And I think it even had me hit continue there to exit to see if it would reboot back up, and which it didn't. So then we went back through the process, and I got back here, and then it had me go down to troubleshoot. And then it seemed like there's a screen before this that you had to choose advanced options, but I couldn't find it on the internet. But you'll get to advanced options, and then you'll go down to command prompt there at the bottom. And then a black screen will show up, which, for a non-computer guy was terrifying. And Claude had me entering different stuff, trying to see if it would work. And one of the things was basically doing the recovery password through the command prompt to see if that would work. And then at this point, I had to use, I said I had 3 recovery keys. I ended up using all 3 recovery keys. And then also they said if it doesn't work, add the dashes. So every time it had me doing something like this, I was doing like 6 times trying to do this, as we're trying to work through it. I was just trying every avenue. So that's why I said you want to make sure you have it written down or screenshot where it's easy to get to. But here's a few of the commands that it had me do, but I wouldn't do it until you get on there with Claude and see what he thinks with yours. And then we finally broke free, got out of it. And then, the whole time I'm asking it questions, I'm telling it what the screen's saying. And then, I basically said, how do I not make this happen again? So it had me disable or suspend the BitLocker. And, since this is a desktop, it's not a laptop. I don't take it out to coffee shops or anything. That's not an issue for me, security-wise. So I chose to go that route because this really put a lot of stress on me not having my computer. It ended up being 10 days, and that's way too long, for me. So, and then at the end, I asked it to give me a summary of what you had me do, because it took 3 hours to do this. I don't know if mine was typical or was just something odd going on. I had to get in and change some stuff. And so I asked it to give me a summary of what you had me do, because I know my computer friends are going to ask me. And this is what it told me. Let me pull it up here. Okay, and it says, tell your friend, I got stuck in the BitLocker. The BitLocker recovery key on Windows 10. Every time I entered the recovery key, it just asked for it again. We tried unlocking the drive with manage BDE commands in the recovery environment, but they kept failing. We rebuilt the boot configurations files and modified boot settings with BCD edit to ignore failures. What finally worked, we disabled BitLocker protectors using manage BDE protectors disable from the recovery command prompt, then rebuilt the boot files one more time. After that, Windows booted normally. Now BitLocker protection is suspended, disabled on the C drive, so no more recovery key loops. So that's, what I did there. Kind of crazy, the steps I had to go through to get this, but as a business owner, you need your equipment when you need it. You need your computer. Like I said, it was at the end of the month, and I had invoices go out, and I had really no hope in sight that it was going to get fixed soon. So I pulled out the old written invoices and then snapped a picture on my phone and emailed it to customers. And then, put a little note about it, about my computer down, try to make it funny, so I look halfway professional. And because, I want to make sure the invoices are out, make sure the cash flow is still coming. So I wasn't sure how to move forward there. So that's what I did. So, hopefully you get this figured out, and, on our, journey, we're going to have crazy stuff like this happen. Stuff that it's out of your wheelhouse, I guess you'd say. I'm not a computer guy. And to think that I just did code and fixed my computer because of the technology that's out there, it's insane. Because I am ignorant when it comes to a computer. So hopefully this helps you. Just reminder, business is a journey. This is part of my Business is a Journey series. I give real world tips on marketing, sales, customer service, and, even maybe solving tech problems or just, common problems in your business, things you never saw coming. So for more business wisdom, faith insights, or even creative inspiration, subscribe and join the journey. Thanks for watching.